Yo, what's going on, guys? You got Glop, and today I'm bringing you coverage of the RBCT. This is going to be games 3 and 4 versus Gang. So, shortly after game 2, when I lost in Gen 3, I figured, okay, let's just get all the hacks out of the way right now. So I decided to take him to Generation 1, where usually your game plan is to just try to Thunderwave as many things as possible. So, going into this game, my team was Diglett, Lapras, Bulbasaur, Porygon, Voltorb, and Tauros. So, starting off here, we have the Diglett versus Articuno, and immediately I'm thinking, okay, this isn't a great position. Usually Articuno only run like Ice Beam and Blizzard, a couple other support moves, so I felt pretty comfortable making a switch into my Lapras, as he's also going to be scared out going into Sandshrew, which, I mean, I think it makes sense. He might have been expecting something like a Rock Slide to come out, which would have done well over half to Articuno. So I'm pretty free here to just throw off a Blizzard as he switches into Kabuto. And I look at my team and I realize, okay, this is a good opportunity to get in my Bulbasaur, because maybe I can throw off a Sleep Powder and get something slept and pretty much out of the picture. Unfortunately, I end up missing my Sleep Powder, which really stinks because now I basically have to save this Bulbasaur as sack fodder. So I'm going to pull switch into my Porygon, knowing that I pretty much wall this Kabuto. And I'm actually going to speed up this part here, because basically what happens here is I'm just throwing off Thunder Wave, and then I'm just going to kind of recover stall him until I'm at a good amount of HP and I can kill off the Kabuto. So you see here, I'm just recovering up a lot. In this generation, Recover actually has 32 PP, which makes no sense. But yeah, here we are. So anyhow, I keep throwing off Blizzards and Double Edges until eventually I KO the Kabuto. And I didn't try to maximize my HP here because I figured, okay, he's probably going to bring in something strong that can two-shot my Porygon, so, you know, whether I'm at 100% or not, it's probably not going to make a difference. So he goes into Sandshrew. I say, okay, this is a good time to just sack off Porygon, get off a really strong Blizzard, put it in range of some of my other Pokemon's attacks. So Porygon is going to go down. This is going to give me an opportunity to go out to Diglett and go for Slash. And if you don't know, in this generation, crit mechanics are broken, Slash is broken, basically any move that has a high crit chance is broken. So critical hits are actually based upon your speed stat, so the faster you are, the more likely you are to get a crit. And then with certain moves like Razor Leaf, I'm pretty sure they have like a 100 or a 99.9% chance to crit. So like I said, a lot of hacks in this generation. So he's going to go to Articuno. As I go into Lapras, he throw off an Ice Beam, and I figured, okay, this is a good opportunity to just go for Thunderbolt. But Gang actually makes a really nice play and goes into his Venusaur knowing the Thunderbolt's going to come out. So I decided to go into Voltorb, thinking, okay, I've got Explosion on this thing. If I can get one off and KO this Venusaur, that's going to be really big for my team. But I'm sure that Gang knows Voltorb has Explosion. So I go for Thunder Wave, expecting some kind of a switch out. And I'm actually able to catch Mew, which is really nice because Mew is just a bulky, annoying Pokemon. I don't have to deal with it. He's going to throw off Earthquake and get a crit, which isn't too huge because I'm still able to go for Explosion in the following turn. This is actually going to allow Bulbasaur to come in, pick it off with Body Slam, and then unfortunately I have to get sacked off to his Venusaur as a response. So this turn is pretty huge. On turn 33, I decided that, well, I ran a Calc, and I figured, okay, if I can just get off Blizzard damage on Venusaur, then my Tauros and Diglett have a really good shot, because Diglett and Tauros are both very fast, they've got good coverage moves, and if I can just weaken everything a little bit, then I might be able to just go for a mini Hyper Beam sweep, or I might just be able to tank everything and just Body Slam KO. So I go for Blizzard here, knowing that I'll live the Razor Leaf and that Blizzard does well over half. Bruh. But unfortunately, I miss. And this is really huge because I'm basically forced into a situation where now I have to go hard Tauros, and I really don't want to do that because I was trying to preserve this thing's health. Gang realizes that Venusaur is important, so he makes a switch out, which is a good play in his part. Body Slam not going to affect that Gengar, of course, but Gen 1, no abilities, so I'm pretty much free to throw off an Earthquake. And right here, it's actually a speed tie, so I do not want to risk this. I don't think my Diglett's health is very important for anything, considering it just dies in like one hit anyways. So I actually go into my Diglett here on a Psychic, which I take a little bit better than I expected. And then I can follow up with an Earthquake, knowing that I outspeed the Gengar. And in this position here, I kind of have to just sack off my Lapras, because I'm not going to get a chance to rest. If I rest, he can just pull switch into Venusaur. And then I didn't really accomplish anything, so I figured it's better to just get damage off an Articuno and, you know, hope that maybe Tauros can just clutch it with some hacks. So Ice Beam is going to finish off Lapras, and I'm actually going to go into Diglett, hoping that, you know, maybe I can get a crit Rock Slide, because that's pretty much what I'm fishing for at this point. And thankfully, I actually do get that. But, you know, it's going to be a full health Venusaur versus Diglett and Tauros. So Diglett's going to go down to this Razor Leaf, and I ran some calcs, and I figured, okay, the only way I'm taking out this Venusaur is with a crit Hyper Beam, which isn't unheard of, considering Tauros is a very fast Pokemon. So, very unfortunate series of events. I felt like the game was mostly in my control, but, you know, he got a little bit of luck. It's Gen 1. I mean, it's to be expected. But anyhow, I'm going to transition now over to the next game we played, which was in Generation 6. Alright, and we are back for the Generation 6 battle versus Gang. I decided to counterpick him to Gen 6 for a few reasons. Number one, it's closest to Gen 7, where I feel very comfortable. But also because Gen 6 is actually the generation that... it's where I feel like I solidified my skills as a player. I started in like very late 4th gen, early Black and White, but Gen 6 is where I really like figured out the game, started understanding the fundamentals, so I wanted to test his skills there, and I also wanted to test his understanding of a certain mechanic. So Gen 6 of course introduced Mega Evolution. The difference between Gen 7 and Gen 6 is that in Gen 6, when you Mega Evolve, you do not get your speed immediately. So I wanted to see if he knew that, and funnily enough, he answers that for me on turn 1 of the battle, because we've got Darmanitan versus Glalie. By the way, my team is Darmanitan, Meganium, Lugia, Watchog, Lantern, and Dragonite, which, looking at that immediately, I felt like Dragonite was going to be probably my win condition. So, right off the bat, he tells me that he does not know how speed mechanics worked, and I thought this was hilarious because, you know, if this was Gen 7, he could have outsped me, gone for Earthquake, but that's not how it works, unfortunately. So he loses Glalie right off the bat. His response is going to be to go into Heliolisk, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to take a Thunderbolt, Hyper Voice, anything like that. So I pull a switch into my Meganium, and I go ahead and run a calc for the damage, and I figured out that the Heliolisk is Choice Specs. So that's important information to keep in mind for later in the game. Rapidash is the response, and I felt comfortable going into my Lugia here because I have Heal Bell on my Lantern, so if Lugia gets burned, it's not the end of the world. I basically just wanted to throw off a Toxic and start getting some residual damage on his team. So he unfortunately misses Will-O-Wisp, and he's going to allow Heliolisk to take that Toxic. And, you know, knowing that I have Multiscale intact, I feel comfortable going for Roost here. I can take any attack he goes for, and then just kind of scout and see what his response is. So Empoleon's going to come out, and looking at my team, I don't want Meganium taking any damage, I don't want Lantern getting Toxic. So I figure, let's go out into Watchog. Maybe I can put on some pressure that way. And that's exactly what I decided to do. I go for SD, and this is pretty important, because if I get damage on Empoleon, then my Dragonite has a really great chance of sweeping. I actually did not have Earthquake on it. I had Outrage, Fire Punch, and Extreme Speed, so I need to damage this Empoleon somehow. And he's actually going to allow me to do that in the following turn with Knockoff, which makes sense because if he switched, something would have had to take a +2 analytic boosted Knockoff, which probably isn't the smartest play. So I'm able to pick off Empoleon or get it whittled down to the point where I can go out to Darmanitan, and Gang makes an insane raid here. Good shit on you, buddy. He knows that I probably don't want to go for a fire move since Rapidash has Flash Fire, and Earthquake's a very safe option. So he uses this as an opportunity to get in his Yanmega. So really risky play, but it pays off for him. But unfortunately for him, I have Lugia sitting right here, and it just walls all variants of Yanmegas. So I can Roost up here, and Heliolisk is going to come back out. Now looking back on this turn, I feel like I should have just stayed in and roosted again. But I believe here I just opt to go out into my Lantern, yeah. And this is actually kind of a risky, but also a smart play, because I hadn't revealed that I had a Volt Switch immunity. So this kind of allows me to just throw off an attack for free. So I go ahead and throw off Thunderbolt, as Rotom is the response. And I do not want to risk my Lantern this early in the game. I'm going to pull a switch into my Meganium, and he calls that very nicely by going for Volt Switch, which allows back in the Rapidash. And Rapidash at this point looks like kind of a big threat to my team, believe it or not, because he can Will-O-Wisp and break my Multiscale, meaning that my Lugia is going to have a harder time walling his team. Knowing that, I figure, okay, then my best chance of winning this is to get damage on his team so that Dragonite can clean up late game. So I throw off an Aeroblast, which does a really great amount of damage to the Rotom. And from here, he's going to go for Volt Switch once again, I believe. Yep. Back out into that Rapidash. And here I feel pretty comfortable pivoting into Lantern. I feel like the fire attack's coming out. and I do get that play right, but Gang shows he's staying one step ahead of me, makes a very saucy read, and goes out into his Helilist, which is going to work out for him because he gets healed up. So I switch out, not wanting to take a Specs Hyper Voice. I go out into Meganium as potentially a sack, as he opts to go for Dark Pulse, so I believe that tells me he does not have Hyper Voice. Empoleon's going to be his response as I go for Leech Seed. And here we're both going to pull switches. He's probably expecting Giga Drain, and I'm expecting a double of sorts as well. So I go out into my Lantern as he goes Rotom. And right here, I realize that this might be the opportunity for Dragonite to just end the game. Because if he commits to going for Leaf Storm, then he's locked in with that Choice Scarf. And I can basically get free setup with Dragon Dance. So I'm willing to let Lantern go down here. And I go out into Dragonite, click DD, knowing that I'll be able to take Empoleon's Ice Beam thanks to Multiscale. So that's exactly what plays out, get another Dragon Dance up, and that's important because I'm pretty sure at this point that the Rotom is Choice Scarf, based on the damage done to Meganium and the fact that I haven't seen Life Orb or Leftovers. So I needed Dragon Dance twice so that I could outspeed it. So I'm able to pick off the Empoleon in the next turn with Fire Punch. And here I make kind of a stupid play. I thought that, you know, at least I was thinking like, okay, I don't want Outrage Confusion to ruin my sweep, even though I have a Lumberry. And I don't know why I was afraid of this. So I felt like I had to go for Fire Punch this turn, which doesn't make sense. But, you know, when you're in the moment, you know, sometimes you're thinking really hot, sometimes you're thinking really not. In this turn, I was thinking really not. So I went for Fire Punch because I figured it had a 50% chance to KO after I looked at the calc. But I do not get the KO. And that's important because if he had Ancient Power, then my Dragonite was dead. Thankfully, he does not have it, goes for Air Slash, which I'm able to tank. And at this point, I've sealed the game because Outrage is going to pick off the remaining 3 members. He's trying to put it in a position where, you know, Rapidash is his last because, again, it is the most threatening Pokemon to my team. But as I mentioned earlier, I do have the Lumberry, which, again, I don't know why I didn't just click Outrage because it would have killed, like, everything. But nonetheless, here we are. We've arrived at the sweep, so it was a pretty quick game for Gen 6. And that's all I'm going to cover today, guys. I don't want to do the other 3 games because, again, I don't want these videos being too long. So I'll probably be covering those in the next video. Also, keep your eyes out because I'm going to be doing more coverage of Pokemon Clover. Thank you again for all the support I got on the most recent video for that. And that's going to be it. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace.